Alright guys, here we are on January 27th, 2019 up at Valley Trail Riders for the Winter Fun Race. I got Deck and Jack right next to me, and as you can hear, I'm yelling at them, we're not even supposed to go that way. If you know this track, the starting point is right here always, and then you take a sharp left, go into a couple little smaller jumps. And if you look real carefully when we start here, you're not supposed to go that way. They've got it arrowed off to go in a different direction. And I guess I'm about the only person that noticed the arrows. So this kid that just pulled the whole shot is 12 years old, and he's clearly not a C-class rider. There was 6 of us in the C-class. And the 2 guys that actually finished first and second were that 12-year-old kid and someone else that I assume was with him because they were talking, so I'm guessing they at least know each other. But yeah, they definitely were not C-class riders. So obviously, since I'm the only one that paid any attention to the direction of the arrows, I technically have the whole shot, but it's going to be short-lived. This is the first lap, and obviously, the guys in the A and B classes that had taken off in front of us were really more or less following the outline of the traditional track, so they weren't necessarily following the green arrows, which is what I was trying to follow, so I kind of go off in some different areas here from where they had clearly ridden. What you hear me yelling about there is that I can't see anything. It's the morning of the race. It was somewhere around 3 or 4 degrees. By the time we started, it was like 5 or 6 degrees Fahrenheit, and so it was really, really cold. And my goggles, I was sitting there on the starting line with my goggles on my face, and they started to fog over just from sweating, and as soon as we took off, they froze. So there was no moisture evaporation happening once we got going. So I rode this little bit here with them down, trying to see through the frost that was built up on the inside of them. And a little ways up here, I stall the bike out and fall over, and I took my goggles off and rode the rest of the race with them off. Definitely not the best idea. There's certainly a lot of low-hanging tree branches and twigs and sticks and stuff out here that, yeah, I could have ended up with a stick through the eye, but I figured it was better to take a chance on scratching my eye than not being able to see at all, because it was causing a lot of problems. Like right here, I could not could not see. So if you guys followed the weather before this race at all, the week leading up to this race, they were supposed to get a bunch of freezing rain up here, and I was really looking forward to that with the studs that I'm running. If it had been icy, it would have actually been really, really good traction-wise, because it would have given me something really solid to bite into. Instead, they ended up not getting any freezing rain. It was all snow. So as you can see, there's about 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground here, on top of an inch or so of leaves, on top of just really soft granulated sand. So it was just slippery snow on top of slippery leaves on top of soft slippery sand. So right here, you can't even see that there's a bunch of tree branches there, and I decided to try and go that way, got hung up just a little bit, stalled, and fell over. So at this point, the 12-year-old kid on his KTM have gotten around me. He's in first. There was a guy on a Sherco that was the guy I'm assuming was with him, that's in second. The guy on the Husqvarna that you saw pass me was in third, and then Deck got around me and was running fourth, so now technically I'm in fifth. And there's one other guy out here on a RM 125 that I never saw the whole race. So he ended up, I know, finishing ahead of me because I only did 2 laps of this race. As you can see, I was fighting the bike the whole time. It was just really, really slippery, really sketchy, and you know, I'm riding a brand new to me motorcycle, so I'm not super comfortable on this bike yet. It doesn't have the recluse clutch that I'm used to on the 2-stroke, and realistically I knew that this was the wrong track to be bringing the 4-stroke to without a recluse clutch. Valley generally has some tight trails. We really didn't know what to expect for this race, only because it's a winter race. You know, we all kind of assumed that they would make it more open, just because it's harder to navigate the course in the snow. But you know, it really was more open than Valley typically is, but it was still pretty tight. You know, there were several spots like right there where I was banging the bars on both ends. And, you know, my bars are narrowed on this bike just like on the 2-stroke. So, yeah, it wasn't perfect conditions, but, you know, it was pretty good. Temperature-wise, like I said, you know, we were right around 5 or 6 degrees when we started the race. And, you know, once we got going, it was actually pretty comfortable. I was riding with just my gear and a sweatshirt and a lightweight winter coat, and I was really warm once we got moving. So right here is when we start getting into this fun part. You know, like I said, Deck had gotten around me, this guy on the Husqvarna had gotten around me, and so now I'm playing catch up as usual. And, you know, it just kind of made it fun, you know, being able to be out here actually, you know, riding at a, well, it doesn't look like a competitive pace, but it felt like a competitive pace during the race. But just being able to get out here and ride with some of the guys and you know, feel like you're racing again. He heard me coming, just got out of the way. I didn't really want to do that. I thought it'd be fun to try and pass him, but that was fine. Deck and I ended up, the 2 laps that I did race, you know, we were swapping back and forth the whole time. You know, he'd have a little off, I'd go around him, then I'd have a little off, he'd go around me, you know, back and forth, and, you know, it was fun. Deck said it pretty well after the race. You know, the snow was the great equalizer. You know, normally when we're out here racing, you know, Deck has the ability to ride fast, but I think he gets in his head a little bit when there's certainly when there's more people out here. And this race, you know, the trails were snow covered, so I was not comfortable. And yeah, there were a whole lot less people out here. I think there was a total of about 20 of us between all the classes. And you know, he was right there with me the whole time. And you know, if I pulled away from him a little bit, it wasn't like I was far. You know, if I screwed up, he was right there. So it was really fun to kind of battle it out with him. And yeah, after I ended up quitting, he kept doing his thing like he always does, and and ended up taking third place, so I was pretty happy for him. I don't know if you guys can tell in this video or not, but if you look close, there are definitely some open water hazards, and it made already sketchy conditions really sketchy, because I know my brakes, by the end of the first lap, both front and rear brakes were completely frozen, so I was relying 100% on engine braking with the bike. So where at one point I was thinking, boy, I really should have brought the 2-stroke. I was glad that I had the 4-stroke, because at least then I could safely engine brake and not worry about doing any damage, especially in these cold temperatures. So there's Deck in front of me. I finally caught back up to him, and I don't know what he's doing, why he's letting me by, but he totally stopped and let me go. And, you know, it's possible he was just wanting to have a little fun and try and keep up. But like I said, between this, him letting me by right there, and, you know, little offs that he and I both had, you know, we swapped positions several times in the first couple laps, and then, like I said, I mean, I was running into trees and having a lot of problems, and I basically decided that if I kept going, I was going to end up with a broken arm or broken leg, and let's be honest about it, this was supposed to be a fun race, so, you know, there's no points, there's no nothing, so I really wasn't interested in injuring myself for something that didn't mean anything. As you can see there, that tree was really low. Didn't matter, I mean, my face was right in my gas tank, and I was still hitting my head on that tree going underneath it, so I really didn't care for that. And I hope that if we're running anything over this direction for the hare scramble this year, that they take that tree out, because I'm going to be pretty irritated if we're out here with 200 or 300 guys and, you know, people are whacking their heads on that. So anyway, yeah, where there was a established trail from our typical spring/summer/fall races, you know, you could keep up your momentum a little bit better, which definitely made it easier to ride. But again, you know, the biggest issue was a lot of these trails, you know, they just kind of, they're close to the regular trails, but they kind of went off further into the woods, and so with the 5 or 6 inches of snow that we had on the ground, you know, a lot of things were covered up, and you couldn't tell where anything was, even on the established trails. You know, if you hit a rut funny, your bike would just shoot off in a direction that you were not anticipating. So it definitely made it a very challenging race. But, you know, again, it was just for fun, and I did have fun. I talked with the owner after the race, and he said that for any of you guys that were hoping to make it, but maybe the weather wasn't good enough, or you had to work, or whatever the case might have been, that you weren't able to make it, he is very strongly considering having a second winter race there this year, towards the end of the season. So if you missed this one and it looks like a good time to you, keep your eyes and ears open on Facebook, because he said that he will be sending out a notice or a notification saying that, you know, whether he'll be having a second race or not. The one thing that I really, you know, I wish I was supposed to be heading to Toronto after this race, so I couldn't really stick around and hang out afterwards. But they were holding the ice races on their flooded infield section right by the clubhouse area during our hare scramble. And to be perfectly honest, that looked like it was a lot more fun than what we were doing out here. If I'd had my fender guards, or my guards over my wheels, you know, for racing ice, I would have at least seen if we could just go out and do a couple hot laps really quick and try it out. The way I've got my bike studded, the studs are not huge, you know, they're not giant lugs sticking out like a snowmobile track or anything like that, which, you know, a lot of the guys that were able to kind of rip through here, the guys that were in the A class, I think there was 2 of them, there might have been 3, there was no more than 3, but those A class guys were really, really fast. I have no idea what they had on their tires, but I do know that the 12-year-old kid that was in the C class, he had some giant lugs sticking out of his tires that looked, you know, pretty similar at least to snowmobile track studs. And yeah, those seem to really help out in this terrain, you know, something to really bite down deep, where my studs are I think the longest ones are in the back, and they're about a 1/2 inch long. So, you know, they're nothing crazy, but yeah, they're definitely too long to be able to legally ice race. You know, at least AMA sanctioned racing. I know that the Canadian cold cutter screws are even too long for that. So, you know, like, couldn't legally race with them, but I would have loved to have been able to at least gone out and played on the ice. My cul-de-sac in my subdivision the last week or so has been about 2 inches of solid ice, and, you know, living in Grand Rapids over this last week, we got a ton of snow. So now we've got about 2 inches of ice underneath, you know, a good solid 1 to 2 inches of really compacted snow, and so it's making it a whole lot of fun for playing around in the cul-de-sac anyways. And yeah, like I said, that was kind of the conditions that I was hoping for out here, because I know that with those carbide tips it really would have hooked up well, but, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah, like I said, we had a lot of fun out here. I really want to thank the guys for putting this together on what technically was fairly short notice. Luckily, we had some decent weather for them to kind of lay a track out beforehand. And yeah, the only unfortunate thing was that up until just a couple days before this, there was no snow on the ground up here. So I would have had a little more fun if it was either frozen ice, or if there was no snow on the ground, or maybe just a really light dusting so you could at least see where everything was. But either way, you know, that's the challenge of riding or racing in the wintertime, and anything like this that you can do to push yourself and challenge your riding skills makes you a better rider, so I can't really complain. The other thing that I started noticing right around the start of the second lap during this race was not only were my brakes frozen, but my clutch was freezing. The cable itself was starting to freeze. So that made it also extremely difficult to run this race. So, see, look at that right there. One little mistake, deck's right there. See you later. And boy, I'll tell you what, those wind mitts help a lot for riding in this stuff, but ooh, when the snow gets in there, it is cold. First, I suppose you're probably not supposed to crash, but you know, that's what I do. So, yeah, you can see, especially when we're getting into this heavier stuff, it's really hard to keep the front end going where you want. Even with the studs, it just kind of pushes straight. Yeah, it was tough conditions out there for sure. A little more open water there. That's a lot of open water there. And I think that was the puddle where my front brakes froze up. Because until that point I still had a little bit of front brakes, but the rears were frozen solid. Even trying to ride the brakes, nothing. I could not get it to melt. In fact, I had the bike out earlier today playing in the cul-de-sac. You know, it's Friday now, and I was playing in the cul-de-sac, and I actually had to put a hairdryer on my rear brakes to get the ice thawed out from this race. So that's how miserably cold and frozen it's been for anyone that's not in Michigan right now. So this section here, it's hard to tell with the snow on the ground, but yeah, that was definitely part of the normal trail. This is kind of a little back alley punch through the normal trail. But yeah, you can see where the trail is pretty well groomed in from our races. It's a lot easier to ride with some confidence, a little bit more speed, and so you start to kind of get into a flow, and then all of a sudden they route you through a frozen briar patch, or you know, there's a section coming up here where we come around the right hand corner, and it's a whole bunch of it's like a giant brush pile with a bunch of snow all over it. So there's trees and brush all over on the ground that you can't see, and it throws you off your game. It was very difficult to get any kind of a flow going, at least for me. I know some of the fast guys were out there, they were cruising, but I found it very, very difficult to get into any kind of a rhythm. I was also not feeling awesome before this race because the night before, Saturday night, I actually was heading over to Deck's house because he and I rode up to Valley together, and when I was loading my bike, I used a 5-foot step ladder alongside my motorcycle ramp to get my bike up in the back of my truck. And I've never had an issue with the ramp or my ladder sliding out from my truck, but my ramp I've always had tethered to my tailgate, but I've never tethered my ladder to the tailgate. And as I was loading the bike, the ladder slipped out from the tailgate, and luckily the bike just tipped over in the bed of the truck because it had made it all the way up onto the tailgate. but I still had 1 foot off the tailgate, and so I ended up falling over and hitting my nose / eye on the edge of the tailgate, or on the edge of the truck bed. And so yeah, now I've got a couple nice black eyes, and I had a really nasty bloody nose, and I'm not sure if I had a concussion or not. It sure felt like there could have been one. Right here is the brush pile. There's a bunch of sticks and stuff down in there that were pushing the front end all over. And then this rut, I don't know where this rut came from, but the second lap it was even deeper. It was pretty tough to get through there, just paddling with both feet. But yeah, so like I said, you know, with hitting my face on the side of the truck bed and all that, I was not feeling amazing. And so yeah, like I said, with the struggles that I had with crashing here and there and everything else, it was really not worth it for me to keep going. I kind of wish that I had, but again, like I said, I really do feel like I would have ended up getting injured had I continued trying to complete this race. So that kid, I don't know what was wrong with his bike. It looks like it's a roughly 2011-2012 TE250 Husqvarna, and he just said he was having all kinds of problems getting it started, which, you know, definitely in these temperatures it was hard to get the bike started. If they died, it was difficult to get them restarted. I had one of my radiators taped off, and I was still only running, I think, 135-ish degrees. So I probably could have taped off both sides of the radiators and still been able to keep it cool. But I really didn't want to take a chance on it overheating in this temperature either. So as you see there, I'd gotten around the kid on the Husqvarna, and at the same time Deck was there, kind of stalled out, not sure what happened to him. But we're nearing the end of the first lap, and so I thought when I got around Deck that I wasn't sure if his bike was running when I got around him or not, but I really wasn't thinking too much about it. And right after we get through scoring, you won't see him in my camera. I wish the lens was a little wider lens, because I saw him just out of my peripheral vision coming on my left side, and so we turned it into a drag race out of scoring here after we get through the first turn. And it was just kind of fun, you know. It's some of the rare times that he and I get to really let it rip with each other. Like right here, I was just kind of putzing, and then right around this corner here, I saw him. It was time to put the hammer down. So I don't know if my bike's got any more power than his or not. I know his bike is pretty dialed in and it's fuel injected, but this bike does have the big bore kit on it, so we're not going to show the whole second lap. I just wanted to kind of show that. But yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe if you want to, and yeah, we'll see you for sure in the springtime. Plymouth is coming up quick, and keep an eye out for a post about Valley Trail Riders holding a second winter race if you're interested. Can't guarantee that I won't be there, but I can't guarantee that I will be there. We'll just have to play it by ear and see how it goes, but I definitely will be willing to give it a second chance. hopefully they'll have a little bit more frozen ground if they do a second one this year. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.